My name is Kevin Newton. I am a horn player. I am from originally South Boston, Virginia, which is basically the middle of nowhere, a very small town. Uh, Loved my upbringing. Then we moved to Danville, Virginia. Um, and then I came to New York for grad school, and that's where I've been based ever since.
How long ago was that? That you moved to New York?
Oh, I've actually only been here for 2 years. I just finished my master's degree at Manhattan School of Music.
Oh, okay, okay. So you went from what was where you are from in Virginia? Was it relatively rural?
Oh, extremely. Yes.
Oh, so New York
Yeah.
is like the ultimate change.
People always say that, but I am kind of a transient person anyway.
Okay,
Yeah, I find comfort in most places that I am. So what the adjustment period actually wasn't that bad.
good for you. That's
It's
great.
just a new set of things.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot more people in a smaller space, I'm sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
great.
it's funny, as many people as there are, it feels more lonely in the sense that people aren't worried, but I actually really enjoy that about the
Mhm.
city.
Yeah, that makes sense too. Yeah, I mean, cities are odd places, I find. I live in San Francisco, and it seems more like a small town than it does like a medium-sized city.
Mm.
Often amazed at how people, like in our neighborhood, we all know each other um, pretty well, and we actually see each other as neighbors. But in a
Mm.
larger city, that actually doesn't necessarily happen all the time. I remember living in New York, and
Yeah.
I didn't know many of my neighbors. It's really interesting how those communities change in the city. So, how did you get started in music?
Well, so my mother uh, played piano, or plays piano rather. She's also a singer, and she played violin. And so music was always a very important aspect um, in my life growing up. There was always music around. And actually, if you ask her, she won't accept this title, but my mother definitely was my first music teacher.
Uh,
Um, yeah, so she worked for a long time in Danville, which is 30 minutes away from where we lived. And then I ended up going to school there as well. So we had a 30-minute commute there and then back to South Boston every day. And basically every day at some point, she would just put on like gospel music or like R&B or something. And then she would say, sing what you think the alto line is.
wow.
And we would just sit there and she would say, no, try again. And she would start the song over again. So just over and over, and then she would sing the line for me and have me sing it back to her without the music, and then have to force myself to try and fit it in. And so that was really my beginning in music, was building an ear that way. And then of course she forced me to play piano as well.
So that's I mean, that's, first of all, it's a great way of like keeping your child occupied, but it's also a great way of actually like making your child learn how to listen. Did you feel like it was
Right.
really a great way to begin how to hear multiple voiced pieces of music? I mean,
Oh, absolutely, yes. And then she also always had, I always sang in the church choir. Really, multiple choir. I was in a lot of choirs as a kid.
okay.
A lot of rehearsals and that kind of thing. So, church, of course, was also a really big part of that musical development. Having a place to put into practice the things that were drilled into me at home and in the car and that kind of thing. I'm sorry, I think I've lost the question. Did I
I don't
answer
know
the
how you get
question?
started in music, and I distracted you. Yeah, just how you got started in music. But I'm just also, as you were just talking, I was thinking about how French horn is sort of a great instrument to sort of transfer the your experience as a singer, and especially as a singer of multiple part music, because French horn parts basically are vocal parts.
Exactly, yes. and it's wonderful because I have a much bigger range on the horn than I ever did, trying to sing. So yeah, it was wonderful. And of course, you have to hear everything before the sound happens. So it was extremely useful. And yeah, so it was singing up until a certain point, and then movies were also an important part of my life, and in my family in general. I mean, we went to the movies. I went to the movies either with my family or with friends basically every weekend. And once I learned to listen and really hear what was happening, I fell in love with the sound of the horn, and I had found my real voice.
I see. Do you still sing?
Mediocrely. I was never a very good singer. It was just something that was expected.
But but you don't sing in any choirs or vocal ensembles anymore?
No, not anymore.
Okay. I was just wondering because sometimes a lot of instrumentalists I know get started in singing and then move to the instrument and then move away from singing and then often come back at some point and do both, which is well.
Yeah. I mean, as far as, a craft, no, I don't work on singing, but I do love to sing.
Okay.
Yeah. And in my teaching, that's something that I'm sure they're tired of hearing, is that I make them sing everything. Yeah, right. Everything that they play, they have to be able to sing. So, yeah.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, especially with something like French horn, because the instrument really requires, as you mentioned earlier, hearing what you're going to play before you actually play it.
Absolutely.
It won't happen. And singing is a great way of learning how to hear something before it actually sounds. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about, you've talked about this a little bit, how music was central to your life growing up, and can you maybe talk about how it's important to you in your life now?
Yes, absolutely. I got very lucky because I was drawn to something initially simply because I enjoyed it. I really loved making music, even when it frightened me to death. And I couldn't imagine, doing anything else. I loved sitting in the ensemble and that kind of thing. But as I'm getting older and I'm more clearly aligning my value systems, maybe that wasn't the best way to say that, but what I'm finding is that as my values change, as I mature, that's how I should say it. Being a musician perfectly aligns with how I view the world. And so it has become something that is far more personal than just making music, making sounds that sound good to someone. It's about communicating, and I really believe in connectivity between people, and music is probably the best tool for that, because it is so universal. And so I find a lot of fulfillment in being a musician. So it's jumped the line of being just something that is fun to being something that is really become a way of life. I'll never forget the first time that I heard Stravinsky's symphonies of wind instruments, and learning that piece for a concert and really digging into it. It really spoke to me on an emotional level. And then so it led me to go read about his life and that kind of thing, and I realized that there were a lot of similarities in life experiences, and that kind of really took me into a different way of thinking, that exposed me to what I would call the power of music, that it transcends those words and everything. I didn't need to know him personally to feel the feelings that he felt, and that is the power of music. It helps people to be seen and validate their experiences, and that's not something that everybody has.
Is there something outside of music, something that's non-musical, that's really important to you in your life that you feel is maybe it does feed into your life as a creative person, or it doesn't feed into your life as a creative person, doesn't really have to? I'm just wondering, what do you do, or what is important to you outside of your music?
Um, well, honestly, I really love movies.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and in particular, horror movies. And I should qualify this.
Okay. Okay.
I was never super into scary movies as a young person because I didn't understand them.
Uh-huh.
I thought to myself, why on earth would somebody intentionally want to scare themselves into bad health?
As a relatively, you're still quite young and you've got, your whole life ahead of you. And I'm just wondering if there's anything in particular that you find to be really central or important to living your life as you move forward in your life. Is there something that's like a really important thing for you?
Um, yeah, really, just the concept of love, and uh, it is like it is the only thing that matters, really. When I tend to view people as part of one big thing, as individual parts of a whole, experiencing um, the need for a self. And what that has taught me is that there's really only two things in human interaction, and there's love and there's fear, and everything that you do that involves another person, well, including yourself, comes from one of those two things. And so that's very central to how I live my life. Is that I always try to act in love towards other people and towards myself, and towards my art and other people's art, and because they are me in
Mhm.
essence.
And thanks for having this conversation. It was great. And I look forward to hearing you play the new piece that you're working on with Aaron. You're working with Aaron, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
and just a quick shout out. She's absolutely amazing to work with.
that's great.
Yeah, it's been incredible.
I'm glad. I'm glad. That's thrilling. Okay, super. Well, I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good.